This sweet dog is Bailey, and this is Rocko. And this is the roadmap to success. Now it's raining. They don't like going out in the rain. I'm probably a little bit wet and disheveled, but I'm an all-weather dog behaviorist. So a couple things. So if we talked a little bit about counter conditioning, there's a lot of sounds that they are reactive to. So I'm going to let them inside so that they don't bark. I'm going to have them start off. Sit. Remember, that's one of the rules we talked about. Sit. Now, I wouldn't have done that normally because Rocko was moving so fast. They're a little bit nervous. What I normally would have done is I would have let Bailey in and not Rocko, because Bailey sat and Rocko did not. But they're acting that way because they're kind of nervous and a little bit insecure. So basically, for the counter conditioning, remind me if they are still reacting to the FedEx truck and stuff like that in a month after the session. Let me know. I'm happy to come back, and I can show you how you can make it a positive when they hear the FedEx sound or the sound of your garage door opening or whatever the other things are that they're reactive to. Let me see. We started out talking about exercise, and really, we started off doing the video that you're not going to see here because it didn't work very well, because it was for the wrong, inappropriate response. The dogs were nervous and anxious. Dominant dogs are going to bark and come towards you. Insecure dogs are going to bark and back away from you, and that's very much what they were doing for me. So I think both of the dogs are insecure for different reasons. We don't want to reward them. Remember, petting a dog or giving attention, good attention and bad attention is the same thing for dogs. So if Rocko barks and the guardian says, Rocko, stop it, Rocko just got the human's attention for barking. Now, it blows us away because we're like, but I'm not happy with you. Dogs don't care. I'm getting your attention. You're not giving it to David, so I'm getting the attention instead. So remember, anything a dog is doing when you pet it is what you're rewarding as well. So if you pet a fearful dog, you will make it more fearful, insecure, more insecure. You can lay your hand on the dog, and they do associate that touch with affection. But as soon as you start petting or scratching, you're going to make it worse. All things equal, I'd prefer you pet your dog under the chin. Do not pet over the head for either one of these dogs. But you can scratch the side and the butt anywhere else you want to as well. Just try not to pet them when they're nervous or anxious. If they're nervous or reactive, the best thing you can do is increase the distance. Now we have a third dog here that we were going to work with, but the guardian of that dog, it was just recently adopted as a husky, and found a trainer that specializes in huskies. You don't really need to find a specialist for a breed. A good trainer is going to be able to work across the board. So I didn't get a chance to see that dog, but from what I understand, that dog is more balanced and relaxed than these two. However, that dog was in a shelter for almost a year, and it's only been in the house for about 2 weeks. Sometimes it takes up to 3 weeks for dogs that are really in a shelter a long period of time, usually about 2 or 3 days, but sometimes you're not seeing their full personality until they've been out for about three weeks. So if that dog's behavior does change, that's not unusual. So for that, the guardians asked what they could do because they tried to get them together, and these guys were nervous and they were growling and baring teeth. I didn't ask the guardians, but you should never correct your dog for growling or baring teeth. That's communication. It's really the antithesis of aggression, saying, I disagree with what you're doing. I'm trying to communicate. I don't like it. We just interpret that as being aggressive because it's teeth, but that's a way for a dog to say, hey man, back off, give me some space. So if we punish them for that, a lot of dogs are like, fine, I won't give any warnings. I'll just go straight to a bite. We don't like that. So we want to make sure if the dog is growling and baring teeth, we increase the distance between them. We show them that we're the good leaders and we're controlling the situation and we're going to put them in a position to succeed. We're going to get you away from the thing that you don't like so you don't have to do it yourself. Now, both of these dogs are a little bit nervous, and so what I would suggest is if you have a guest come over, have a deal where if this is the dog's nose, that you tell people, you want to pet them? Sure, you can pet them, but you have to stop an inch in front of their nose, and if the dog comes towards you, then you can reach in and pet them. But if they turn their head to the side or lower their head or back away, that's the dog's way of saying, I don't want you to pet me. The more that the people listen to them, the more confident the dogs are going to be around new people. A lot of us think, well, what I'm doing is okay, I'm petting you anyway, so it's okay because it's a good thing. It's not okay for me to touch a girl, even if I'm touching her in a good way, if she doesn't want me to touch her. Same sort of thing should apply for the dogs. Now, it just reminds me, there's a little, we're not going to show it here, but there's a window that kind of is on the stairs that allows the dogs to look out over the front of the house. I think these dogs think that they contribute to the pack by being guard dogs, and they bark. Problem with the barking is I see somebody out here, I bark at them, and I bark until they leave. So I think as a dog that barking makes them leave because I get the validation. So what I would recommend you do, if this is the window, take some white paper and cover the inside of the window just high enough so the dog can't see out of it. Leave the rest of the window open so we get this nice sunlight. As humans, we're taller, we can see out, we can see what's going on. But the dog goes to the window and barks, they don't get the validation of knowing that they made the thing move away. And that will greatly reduce that. It'll also reduce running up to the stairs because they won't be able to see out there. So it looks like these windows go in both directions, so I do it in both directions and keep the rest of it up so the dogs can't see here or there, but especially the window that faces that side, because that's where the nemesis is with the ducks that are in the wagon, and that's really causes them some problems. And all right. We started out talking about exercise, because for most dogs that are under exercise, your average dogs these size, bigger dogs sleep more than little dogs. These dogs probably need to sleep 14 to 16 hours a day. When they're asleep, they're recharging the batteries, and then they're ready to go, and then they burn their energy, and then they sleep and recharge the batteries. So all day long, it's up and down like this. Your average dog needs an hour's worth of exercise a day, but at best sprinkled throughout the day in shorter energy bursts. So we went over some creative forms of exercise. Walking is great. Now for Rocko is using his eyes, which is not how dogs should experience the world. They should experience their nose. So what I'd like you to do is, if you're gonna walk him, not on a rainy day like this, but go out with some finely shredded cheese, and then go to the side of the grass on this side of the sidewalk and just sprinkle a little bit. The first day or two, I would maybe have a big chunk all at once and walk Rocko right up to it. If he doesn't see it, tap your foot a couple times until he sees it and licks it up. And then you walk maybe after the next driveway, somewhere on the next property. Maybe the grass, it's on this side. If you have a sidewalk, the grass on either side. So we don't want them to know exactly where it is, but they like the cheese. And after a while, instead of Rocko doing this, Rocko is doing this and sniffing the ground looking for that cheese. And when he finds it, he's going to be sniffing the ground a little bit. Sniffing, remember, is very soothing, relaxing, stimulating, and it drains energy for dogs. So we want Rocko to learn to sniff on a walk as opposed to looking at everything and barking and lunging at everything. And I would continue walking the dogs. The guardians are doing a good job of walking the dogs separately, which is the best way to go about it. One dog will trigger a response and get the other dog worked up. So we want them to practice. Also, Rocko has medical issues, so he doesn't have the same stamina that Bailey does. And so walking them separately would be a good idea. You can also get the doggy backpack. Loaded up with bottles of water or bags of sand on the side. That would be for her, not for Bailey, not for Rocko. But that also kind of gives them a job, and sometimes it's a uniform, and that puts them in a work mode. Remember that you can use exercise to set them up for success. So before you're going to practice the stuff I talk about in the video above, they should be exercised first. Before the kids come home from school, whenever we go back to school, if there are going to be a lot of kids or a bus or cars or whatever it is, exercise them before. You can set them up for success. You're going to have guests over, exercise them. Now remember, we're not going to exercise them to the max. We're going to talk about various different forms of exercise, but you should practice these the first time with an empty stomach, and they should always have an empty stomach for practicing this. But the first time you want to do it, you want to max them out and see what the maximum number of times they'll go up and down the stairs or whatever the case may be. All right, so basically the first one I talked about is after the walk and letting them sniff on the walks is the Doggy Stairmaster. So I either have a toy or a treat. I throw the treat to the bottom of the stairs. When the dog licks up the treat, I say Jamaica or whatever the word is that means go down south. I would like you to make a list of the official command words for the house. And any new commands that you teach them, I'd like you to assign a new or a funny command word. So if I want my dogs to lay down, I say crash and they fly down. If I want them to run forward, I say charge. If I want them to back up, I say retreat. I call my dog bed Jamaica. So all these things kind of cause people to smile and laugh, and that motivates dogs to want to do those things. So for new commands, I'd like you to try to come up with a funny command word for it. My little dog Max, I tell him to crawl on the floor. We call it sneaky. You say sneaky, he drops down and crawls across the floor, people laugh. So again, that's what we're looking for. And a quick little sidebar before I get back to the exercise. Teaching dogs new tricks and commands is a great way to boost their self-esteem and confidence. These dogs can both use it. So if you would like, let us know. I'm happy to send Kayla or one of our other trainers out here to teach the dogs some basic tricks and commands. Your average dog, confident dogs, usually when they reach a plateau of about 10 or more commands, they kind of reach a certain level of confidence. Now these dogs, because they've been nervous for a while, might need to be a little bit more, but try to teach them some new tricks and commands yourself. And if you can't or don't have time for that, let us know, and we're happy to send some people out and work with that. But that will help boost their self-esteem, and that's a good way to inoculate them from some of these reactive behaviors. Okay, for exercise, the Doggy Stairmaster, we do it with empty stomach, the max amount, each dog separately, so we know what their maximum number is. We want to exercise 50 to 75% number, but remember, different quantities are going to be required for different things. So maybe practicing the stuff in the front yard, maybe we need 35 up, downs on the stairs, or maybe before a walk, maybe we'd only do 15 or 20. So the idea is we want to get to the point where the dogs know we can set them up for success and different amount of exercise that puts them in that Goldilocks amount of exercise that puts them in a position to succeed. Other things that we can do is hide treats around. Google scent games, SCENT. There's a whole lot of different ways to do it. Using the nose is very draining, stimulating, relaxing, like I mentioned earlier. So just having a game where you hide treats around the house and they've got to use their nose to find them is a great way to burn energy. You can also use fetch for Bailey. Bailey likes to fetch. And then, let me see. Also, feeding your dog out of treat dispensing toys. The Guardians have a couple of these. I like using the Omega Paw treat ball. That's what it's called. It's an orange, it looks like an orange ball. Get the large one for your size dogs. They're about 17, 18 bucks a piece. But you fill it up with kibble and then they got to nudge it around. That's a nice thing that you can do when guests come over. It gives the dog something to do. For dogs this size, though, make sure when it's empty, you pick it up and put it up somewhere, otherwise they'll rip it open. Also, I'd like you to get 2 snuffle mats and start feeding your dogs out of the snuffle mat and stop free feeding them. So I would, before you get to the snuffle mats, put the food in their bowls and then make sure you guys eat something for 5 more bites first and then invite them to eat. And I would come up with a command word for each one of them to eat. I guess they can eat at the same time and you could use one command word for both dogs. I like to have it separate, but since these dogs eat at the same time, they're used to doing that. I probably recommend the Guardians continue doing that. But as soon as they take the food out of the bowl and walk away, pick up the bowl. As soon as they walk more than 5 paces away, pick up the bowl, dump it empty, make sure you put that empty bowl on the ground. That is important. Then that dog is done, and then don't let that dog try to go to the other dog's food. And after a couple of days, the dog will realize as soon as I walk away from the bowl, the food goes away. Maybe I should just stay here. Right now, the food is always there. It's the most important activity for dogs, and so the dogs really don't appreciate it because it's always available. Well, if it's only available twice a day for like a couple minutes at a time, and the humans are providing that, that really elevates the humans in the leader, and it also helps the dog eat when we want them to eat, which is better for them anyways. The more structure that these dogs are going to have, the more comfortable and confident they're going to be, because right now I think they're in charge of everything, but nobody listens to them, and that causes them the same stress that a mother gets when she has a child that runs around the house with scissors or jumps off things when they're a little kid because they don't know any better. That's how the dogs think that we don't know any better. Okay, so getting back, so for exercise, remember it's best done every 2 to 4 hours, and when the dog's naughty, ask yourself how long it's been since it's been exercise. If it's been longer than an hour, it probably needs some exercise. Okay, we also talked about incorporating rules. Now remember, enforcing a rule is not mean. Enforcing rules are not negative. Enforcing the rule is not mean. And then rewarding the dog by breaking a rule is a very confusing thing. It leads to a lot of frustration for dogs. Dogs go through consistency, repetition, and good timing. You have 3 seconds to correct or reward them. So if we let the dog, if we repeat a command multiple times or we try to get beyond that 3-second window, they get a little bit confused. So if you want to reward the dogs, rub their bellies, play fetch, take them for a walk, play games. Don't let them break a rule as a reward because it's very frustrating. It confuses them, makes them want to try to do that again, and you get frustrated, they get frustrated, creates a lot of anxiety. So the first rule I suggest is probably going to be the hardest for these Guardians. It's hard for most people. No, not being allowed the furniture. Remember, the rules should be in place for a minimum of 90 days or as long as the problem's going on, so probably longer than that. Now you can order those X mats, the letter X, M-A-T-S, on Amazon or Chewy. They're about 11, 12 bucks a piece. Put them on the cushions. The dogs, they have little nubs on them that don't feel good to lay on. That'll teach the dogs to stay off the furniture. I would make your bed only allowed to be in the bed when they get permission and invitation to get up. They get up on their own, make sure you walk over there and escort them off, and then they're off the furniture, off the bed until you get fluffy and fluff up the covers and the pillows. And when you're ready, you invite them up and you tell them where to go. If they don't like it, there's a whole lot of floor for them. Now, I have a video on my website. If you want to get them to use the dog beds, message me. I'm happy to share that video with you, teach them how to use the dog beds if you forgot what I showed you here. Other rules, you have to sit at the door. I tell you to sit one time, and if you don't sit, I don't open the door. And if one of the dogs sits, I'd open the door and let that dog out, kind of like what I talked about at the beginning of this video. Most people train their dogs to jump at the door. This will teach the dogs to sit at the door. If they don't sit within 3 seconds the first time, sit down, wait 1 minute, then go back to the door and command them to sit. 1, 2, 3, don't sit by 3 seconds. I walk away and sit down for 2 minutes, next time for 4 minutes, 8 minutes, keep double length of time. As soon as they sit, fly the door open. And eventually they'll sit at the door as their way of asking to go outside. All right, also I would not allow them to be within, in the kitchen when you're cooking food, or be within 7 feet of any human who is eating, or the dog if they're eating. If one of them has a bone, don't let the other one go linger. Remember, if this is a dog and I'm a dog and I want their stuff, I'm just gonna invade their personal space and try to get them intimidated, and then I'm gonna take the item. So instead of that, don't allow that. Get in between the dog and don't allow them to come towards it. All right, so I was going to say something, but I forgot. It'll come back to me. All right, we also talked about petting with a purpose, and there's probably other rules you can incorporate. So maybe you have to sit before I pick up the ball to play fetch, or sit before I put the leash on you, sit before I open the door of the car. There's a whole bunch of those. So try to incorporate. The more rules and structure that you can incorporate. For dogs, leaders are the ones who enforce the rules. So I don't want you to have a ton of rules. Dogs need to have fun and all the rest of that stuff. But the more you do have, they have to hesitate. They have to wait for permission to go through that open door or whatever it is. That helps them practice some self-restraint, self-control. It also helps them see you acting like a leader, and that will reduce their overall anxiety and also reduce their perception that they need to guard your yard. All right, we talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. These are a great way to add structure to petting your dog. So leaders tell, followers ask. So if the dog comes up to you and nudges you or barks or paws at you for attention, it's telling you what to do. If you pet it, you're saying, yeah, you're my boss. And if you're my boss, well, then the dog doesn't have to listen to you. So next time your dog nudges you or barks at you, give it a counter word. Tell it to sit. If it's already sitting here, tell it to sit over here or tell it to lay down. If it complies in 3 seconds, pet it under its chin and say sit or lay down or whatever the command word is. If it doesn't sit, show the dog, I got other things to do. Playing hard to get works great for dog training. After a while, the dog will realize, I can't tell the humans what to do anymore. I have to ask for their attention, and better than ask, I have to pay for the privilege of their attention. And what will happen is the dog starts sitting in front of you to prepay for the attention. When it does that, make sure you do go over and pet it and recognize and reward it. Otherwise, it'll go back to nudging you. So if you want to pet the dog, or if the dog is telling you to pet, you're going to tell it to sit or lie down, and don't practice that shake anymore. We make sure you use the watchword of paycheck. So if someone is petting the dog without a purpose and you come in the room, you see that the dog is standing and the person's petting, you say paycheck. Even if that person did it right, they would stop petting, tell the dog to sit. When Bailey sits, pet her on the chin, say sit. And actually when you turn the garbage disposal on, she stood up and I continued petting her. But thanks for reminding me, because it's a gentle reminder. It's not a gotcha. So that's if you want to pet the dog or the dog is demanding attention from you. However, we also want to reward desired behaviors. Remember, I asked you, the clients, what could the dogs do to contribute to the group or to make them happy? And they gave me a list of things they don't want the dog to do, which is a very common response. But that's channeling the negative. We want the dogs to know what they can do to make us happy. So we want to celebrate those things that they do voluntarily. So every time the dog comes to you, pet it and say, come. And this is when you didn't ask the dog to come. And remember, you put the treat in the mouth first, or you pet first and then say the command word second. Dog comes and sits next to you, pet it and say sit. Lays down, pet it and say crash. Lays down on its back, I call this one pancake if they're on their back, belly up. So you can come up with different words. Eating food and so on. So what we're doing is we're waiting for the dog to voluntarily do the action. Then we're marking it by saying the command word. Then we're providing a reinforcer, a reward or a treat or something along those lines. After a while, the dog wants to do, if I want your attention, I'm going to sit, I'm going to lay down, I'm going to come to you, because these are things that you seem to like, because that's what gets my attention. And that will help with their obedience outside in the front yard and a lot of other situations as well. Now, I'd recommend coming up with an alternative bad dog name for each dog. So my dog's name is Quest. When he does things I don't like, I call him Rufus. And when he hears Rufus, he's like, ooh, I just did something wrong. So right now the guardians, like a lot of people, are saying the dog's name when they're doing the wrong thing, and that creates a negative association. Now, Rocko has a little bit of a submissive urination, and we want to never correct the dog or punish the dog. The guardians here aren't doing those things, but a lot of people watch these videos and don't know. Or chastise the dog or say bad dog, because that's the dog is doing it because it's so insecure it can't control its bladder. So it's already very nervous and anxious. We let them know that we're upset with them. Good attention, bad attention, same thing, but it will make it worse in that particular capacity. So you just want to go clean it up and don't say anything. Try to let your dog out before you're going to have guests come over, or anytime he's going to be nervous or anxious. But again, what I would prefer to do is you make a list of all the trucks and the sounds that he works. There's a problem for him, and have me come back and show you how to counter conditioning. So we just eliminate those things, and you don't ever have to deal with those things again. In the short term, you just want to increase the distance, move it away. So remember, if you're going to have a conference call, exercise the dogs first. Give them 10 minutes to rest or recover, then give them a bully stick. And then I would probably have them on the far side of the house, and then I would probably play a little classical music. Classical or reggae music are ideal, or down-tempo music. You don't want to play talk radio or news channels or jazz. Those things that cause the dogs to get really anxious and nervous. So, because it's the chaotic of the notes. The melody is nice and relaxing. And so set them up for success. So you got a 20-minute call. Maybe that means I need 25 up downs in the stairs as opposed to 10 for a short call. But again, set them up for success. Remember, to stop a bad behavior or unwanted behavior, we have to block the dog's access from doing the old thing while we provide them a reward for doing the right thing. And after enough practice, they will choose to go the way that we want them to go as opposed to the old way. Every time they do the old way, it doesn't set you back to zero, but it really sets you back quite a bit. So make sure you're consistent with these things. Consistency is one of the most important things when it comes to dog training. As humans, we are very inconsistent because we're not paying attention, and that's where a lot of unwanted dog behaviors and problems come from. I mentioned the hissing sound to disagree. I have 10 levels of that hiss. So a level 1 hiss to a level 10 where I'm spittling. But remember, your dogs are sensitive, so try to use the lowest level possible. Now I translate the hisses to no, don't do that, or don't even think about doing that. And I try to do it before the dog does the wrong thing. Once the dog has broken the border or whatever it is, and they've broken the rule, you can't hiss at them because they're not going to respond to it. And if they're reacting, barking at stuff, the hiss is not going to help any way, shape, or form. Now, the focus exercise that Kayla showed you is something I'd like you to practice once. I'd like everybody in the house to practice it with 12 treats each practice. And each person in the house, we'd like them to practice at least, well, if it's just the 2 adults, I'd like the adults to practice it with each dog twice a day. If there's more kids in the house and they can help practice and they're participatory, then I would definitely like them all to do it. Maybe we can go to once a day for everybody. Now, the progression for this is at first it's 1 second, 1 second. And again, there should be no distractions. And we keep doing this first stage until the dog is pretty much just looking at us the whole time. If the dog's looking at treats or anywhere else, keep it the 1 second, 1 second. And make sure you're not, so I mean, boom, boom. And so you get that treat in the mouth and practice in different parts of the house. But always go from the treat, from the nose to the dogs. A lot of times they're people lazy. We want the reason that we're going here is we want the dog to maintain looking at our face. And so if we give it from here, they're going to look down. If we open it here, they're going to look at us the whole time. Now, when you do this, you want to practice and you want to get to the point within 7 days that inside, the dog will sit there and wait as the treat is coming from your nose to their mouth. If they're coming forward for it, that means you're going too fast, back up a step and practice the previous iteration. So once you get to the point where within 7 days, and dogs get bored with this one, so make sure you're practicing, everybody's practicing multiple for just a week. The second week, what you want to do is you want to practice maybe on your deck out back, but not when there's a lot of busyness going on. But outside, they can hear the ducks or the geese and all the rest of that stuff, and that's a distraction. And so we go back to 1 second, 1 second, but we can move faster. Maybe you do 1 second, 1 second for 5 treats, and 1 second, 2 seconds for 5 treats, and 1 second, 3 seconds for the next 2 treats, or whatever it is. And you want to get to the point within about 2 or 3 days where on your deck, the dog's going to focus for that 15 seconds without lurching for it. Then I would practice here in your front yard. Walk around your yard. Go sit on your flagstones in the nice, beautiful yard, by the way. Go sit down there and have your dog sit and do it. And again, there's no distractions. You want to get to the point where you can have that 15-second focus without the dog looking away in your front yard. Now, again, they get bored. So this is really within about 12 or 13 days you want to get this done. And then at that point, you can say, focus, the dog will look at you. But again, don't try to do it when the dog's super distracted. That's when the dog is really close to you and somebody's there. And before they get a chance to bark, you say, focus, and they look away. And then you give them a couple treats and that 15-second, and that gives that person the ability to clear away. Now, we can do the click for looks and some of the other stuff that I talked about. If you forget how to do those, message me, and I'm happy to go over those with you. Like I said, I'm happy to share videos, or if we need to, I can come back. If you want to do that loose leash walking class, just message Becca, and she'll be happy to take care of it. All right, normally I would say, this is Bailey, and this is Rocko, but they're back there behind the house, and we're outside because it's Corona era. I'm wearing red because we wear red to support healthcare workers. Thank you if you're a healthcare worker watching us, keeping us safe. This is the roadmap to discuss. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.